Happy Monday, friends. I'm Key from Travel Made Personal. The first stop on our first Alabama road trip in March 2024 was the old U.S. Arsenal Officers Headquarters in Chattahoochee, Florida. Now known as the Florida State Hospital, the site has a rich and complex history, evolving from a military installation to a penitentiary, and finally into the psychiatric hospital that it is now. I was hoping to be able to tour the grounds of the hospital, but we weren't able to. The site is restricted with a guard shack and gated entry. But there is an Apalachicola Arsenal Museum that is free to tour, which I unfortunately did not know about at the time. Guess what's getting added to our future stops list? There is also a historical marker that we will have to find next time we're in the area. Of course, I will share those with you once we've been able to explore them. We did drive up to the guard shack, and I explained that I simply made a wrong turn and needed to turn around. They lifted the gate and let me through, but I immediately turned around because I didn't want security on us. We didn't take any pictures during that turnaround either. It's a hospital and there were patients outside. But we did drive across the street and stop in a store's parking lot to stop and get a picture of the entrance to the site. The site was constructed between 1834 and 1839 and was established as the Apalachicola Arsenal by the U.S. Army as a key military facility in the Florida Territory. It was named after the nearby Apalachicola River and served as a supply depot during the Second Seminole War from 1835 through 1842. The arsenal was involved in various military activities leading up to the Civil War. It was enclosed by a substantial brick wall, but the complex included the officers' quarters, barracks, workshops, and storage facilities. In 1868, following the Civil War, the old arsenal was repurposed into the state's first penitentiary by Florida Governor Harrison Reed. As a penitentiary, the facility housed inmates under harsh conditions. According to reports from the era, severe treatment and exploitation of prison labor led to widespread criticism and eventual reforms. But by 1876, the prison was closed and the site was transformed into the Florida State Hospital for the Insane. This marked Florida's first mental health institution. The hospital has undergone several name changes over the years, but has become the primary facility for psychiatric care in Florida and was notably involved in a landmark Supreme Court case addressing the rights of involuntarily committed patients, O'Connor versus Donaldson. Plaintiff Kenneth Donaldson sued the superintendent of the hospital, Dr. J.B. O'Connor, after being civilly committed and confined for 15 years from 1957 through 1971 at Florida State Hospital. He had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia but was not considered a danger to himself or others and repeatedly requested to be released into the care of friends or family who had agreed to care for him. He claimed he was unjustly confined without adequate treatment and was held against his will despite being capable of living freely in the community, as he wasn't dangerous and just needed a little support. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor in 1975 after a 9-0 unanimous decision, with the key holding being a state cannot constitutionally confine a non-dangerous individual who is capable of surviving safely in freedom by himself or with the help of willing and responsible family or friends. This ruling prompted the deinstitutionalization movement, emphasizing community-based care over long-term hospitalization. It led to reforms in laws across the U.S. regarding involuntary commitment and was a major victory for civil liberties in the context of mental health. The key principles established with this case was that confining a non-dangerous person infringes on their due process rights under the 14th Amendment, as a diagnosis of mental illness is not sufficient enough to justify involuntary commitment unless there is evidence that the person is either unable to survive safely or is dangerous. States must use the least restrictive means with mental health care and must respect individual liberty. While the hospital continues to operate and provide care for folks with severe mental health conditions, the original officers' quarters from the Arsenal era have been repurposed into administrative offices for the hospital, but they're still standing. In fact, the building was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1973, recognizing the historic significance of the site. The evolution of this site from a military arsenal to a penitentiary and then a state hospital reflects the broader changes in societal approaches to defense, incarceration, and mental health care over almost 2 centuries. I wish we could have seen more of the building, but totally understand why we couldn't. Okay, so that was the first stop of the first Alabama road trip. Next week, I'll be sharing the second stop, which was a park and fishing resort in Chattahoochee called River Landing Park, which is sacred ground. We also explored the old Victory Bridge from that park while stretching our legs. Be sure to stay tuned for that. Also, be sure to like and subscribe so you'll get notified as these videos get released. But for now, get out there and explore the world your way.